Hello, everybody, and we are here for a special edition this evening, and it is just me, well, me and our guests, but no Bob. Um, but to bring you some very important information about a very exciting advocacy conference that is coming your way or everyone's way. So, without further ado, let me bring on Eric and Melissa to tell us all about it. Hey guys, how are you?
Hey, Allie, how are you?
Hel Hello.
So I'm super excited for everyone to hear about the advocacy conference, but before we jump right into it, why don't you each tell us like a little bit about you? And I know your podcasts are also very victim centric and advocacy centric. So a little bit about that and kind of what got you into all of this.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'll go ahead and take the first shot at this, Melissa, if you're okay with that.
I'm
Um,
totally cool.
so I ended up in the true crime space because I am the family member of a victim. So my baby brother Jacob, if you're looking on the screen, my mom is actually right below me. She's got the bluish purplish hair, holding a picture of my baby brother Jacob. And I was actually on this stream a few months back talking about Jacob's case, and I I guess I started my podcast, which is called True Consequences, because I wanted to help families like my family in New Mexico who are looking for justice or answers, and just wanted to give them a platform to be able to share their stories in their own words. And through that work, I got the courage to, make some different changes to my approach with Jacob's case. I started a foundation with my mom to help families of the missing and murdered in New Mexico by giving them funds for like funeral expenses, counseling. We pay for billboards, we pay for DNA testing, we pay for PIs, we pay for attorneys, like anything that they need in their fight for justice. But I'm one of those people that just likes to keep going and seeing how much more we can do. And so I had been thinking about starting a conference for a long time. And um, my whole goal with this idea was to bring together the advocates, either professional advocates or also the families of the missing and murdered, with a bunch of experts, with a bunch of resources and a bunch of different things that can help them with their cases. And I tapped Melissa's shoulder and Whitney's shoulder. Whitney's not here this evening, and asked them if they would help me do this crazy thing. And so that's kind of how it all started. Melissa, I'll let you share your perspective.
Okay, so much different from Eric. Whitney and I were day drinking, talking about true crime cases over COVID when we had nothing else to do. And Whitney decided one day, like, let's just record this and make a podcast. I am extremely introverted, and I'm like, this is never going to get listened by anyone because that's not what I'm about. um, kind of put it we did all the serial killers, talked about, well-known cases, and then we wanted to do more. So we reached out to our first family, and that kind of started this whole thing that we like to refer to as action-oriented advocacy, where we do more than just tell the stories. We go out and we help the families or law enforcement. If that's foot searches, honk and waves, various things that anything that the family needs, that's where we try to help out. And now 4.5, 5 years later, we are still doing the podcast. Comes out every Monday. We work with families on every single episode, and it's only unsolved cases that we cover. So when Eric approached us with this, um, about what a year and a half ago with this idea, it was a no-brainer. We're like, yes, we had no idea what we were getting ourselves into, but I am so happy that Eric had this idea, and now it is very soon becoming a huge reality, coming up in less than 2 months.
So when is it? Why don't we start with that?
Yeah, it's March 28th through the 30th. It's in Indianapolis, Indiana. It's at the Marriott East Hotel, I believe. Go to advocacycon.com, has all the information there. But yes, coming up very soon.
And I'll ask everybody for tonight, we don't want any super stickers or any super chats. Make all your donations. They've got a foundation for this that's a 501c, so it's tax deductible. We put the link here, but it's givebutter.com/advocacy foundation. So if you guys do donate, whatever it is, then post any question or comment here saying donated, and we will flag it, and we will, um, you know, we will identify you and thank you and all that good stuff. So let me ask you, what is it about this convention? I'm sorry, conference. It's like force of habit. So just so everyone knows, I met these guys at the True Crime Podcast convention. And I actually, did you tell everyone what your podcast was?
Oh, I don't think
You
so.
changed it from
Navigating advocacy. We were called Cult Crimes and Cabernet, but once we started working with families a lot and having talked to law enforcement, it was a little bit cringy. So we decided to switch it up, and now we are known by Navigating Advocacy.
And did you sort of change the format of your podcast as well from what
Oh,
you used to
definitely.
do? Right.
Yeah, we used to drink wine. We would rate the wine. Oh, we love drinking some wine over here. But yeah, definitely don't do that anymore. All unsolved cases versus how we used to just pick any cases. We do go state by state and cover a different state like all 50 states within one season.
Okay, but people can still listen to your old podcast as well, which I would highly suggest both of them. So I don't listen to very many podcasts. I have listened to both of yours, and they are amazing. So I highly suggest it, even if you're not, a podcast person, you're more of a YouTube person, just give it a go. You will not be disappointed. So back to what I was going to ask, how is this conference different than something like a true crime podcast convention or the true crime convention or any of those? Eric,
Oh,
I think your sound is out.
Uh-oh.
Mm,
there
We
we
hear
Can you hear
you.
me now? Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of what is out there right now, what exists right now in terms of true crime focused conferences and conventions, is they're geared towards creators and fans of the creators. And so while a lot of them are very open and welcoming to families of the missing and murdered, and definitely bring them on and allow them, the platform, Advocacy Con is really directed. It's focused specifically on families of the missing and murdered, but also people who want to get involved and want to learn how to advocate, want to learn how they can make an impact in these cases, how they can go from being maybe a passive true crime consumer into an active participant in this process of fighting for justice, which is grueling and lonely. And so our whole goal really, and you can kind of see our tagline says igniting the spark of hope for victims' families. That's what we want to do. We want to light that spark and let them know that there is hope. We have Beth Holloway coming to talk as the keynote speaker about what it means to hold out for 20 years till you finally get that resolution that you were looking for. The whole theme of the entire weekend is going to be, how can we build hope? How can we inspire these families to maybe take another step that they may not have thought of, or try something else that they may not have done that might be effective? And we're all going to learn from each other. It's going to be amazing.
So, like, one of the things, well, when Bob and I are at these conventions, the true crime conventions, we often have victims. I mean, that's a big part of it, is victims coming to the table, telling their story, trying to get podcasters interested, trying to get the word out there. Do you envision part of this as a place that also creators or investigative type creators can come and really learn, kind of reversing the roles where we're coming and hearing their stories, that type of thing?
Most definitely. We do have some content creators that will be in our expedition hall exhibit. I can't even say it now.
Exhibition.
Exhibit hall. Oh, exhibition hall. They are coming. We try to get those creators that work directly with families to be up in front and center. But we invite all other creators to come out to the event, learn and listen to these stories and make connections. We also plan on having a separate room that's going to be completely put up to mics and recording material. That way the families can get interviewed, have their story down, and we're going to have it edited and give it directly to them. That way they don't have to constantly retell the story if they do want to be on podcast or YouTube channels. I kind of like, here you go, you do what you want with it, and not having to re-traumatize them every single time, if that's what they're
If
so
that's
choose.
That's very interesting concept. I wonder if you could also have a section in that room where if so, how Bob likes to do those man on the street things, for victims and victims' families that are more open to that, that maybe a creator wants a quick interview, wants to get a word out there, and they can kind of do it right there as well. Eric's muted. So this is what I'm just going to let you know what we have for Bob. So this is what we do. It's what I do for Bob because he is muted all the time. Bob, you're muted.
I'm back. Can you hear me now?
We can.
It
That was
wasn't
just a recording of Bob.
No, it was
Or
me saying,
that-
Bob,
saying
you're
that to Bob.
muted.
So funny.
I promise you, I wasn't muted. I think there's something wrong with one of my cords for my mic. So, because it did that the other night when we were live, Melissa, as well.
Mhm.
So, yeah, this is really going to be the first of its kind of event, and we're super excited to be welcoming all these people. And like Melissa said, creators are definitely part of it, but they aren't the focus of it. They're there, and our hope is that they're there to say, hey family, here's some advice on how you could write a story, or here's some I know some people that I can hook you up with that might be able to help you, or I might be able to help you by putting your story on my show. That's really the purpose of them being there, as well as the nonprofit organizations and the other resources.
Right. And I was more thinking that they would come and pay admission in order to interact with the people who are being what is it called when you're not a presenter, but you're a
Attendee.
Yeah. No, I mean, but the people have booths. Are those also
Exhibitors?
Yes.
Exhibitors, to speak to exhibitors and to find content, hopefully based on people who need to get their story out there. I've got another question, and I don't know how easy it is, but I was thinking about this because I'm like, this is amazing, like what you guys are doing. I wonder if you thought about creating some sort of, I don't know, I'm going to call it follow-up portal, but somewhere where like the victims, the exhibitees or the presenters are listed, and people can people interested in doing something can like put something up where it's not the creators thing, but it's the victims or the advocates thing, and they can decide, oh, I like what this guy just had to say, sort of to streamline the introductions. Because a lot of times you meet a lot of people. I scribble down notes like when I'm on the reverse side of it, and then Bob and I kind of talk about it forever, but sometimes we get back to it and sometimes we don't. It might be a way to keep people connected even beyond the convention.
Yeah, that is definitely something that we are interested in, bringing those connections together. It's actually something we experienced at Nova, where we were, given the list of everybody who was exhibiting, and we were exhibitors as well. So I think it's a good idea, and I think it's really important that we have those connections that are maintained beyond the conference. And the good thing is, we are already planning 2026. And so this is going to keep going. I think that there's going to be plenty of opportunity for building on those relationships that are made in the first year as we move around from different place to different place. We won't tell you where it's at yet. You'll have to go to AdvocacyCon in Indianapolis to find out.
So tell us a little bit. I know you've already kind of mentioned a lot of what you do with the resources that you raise, but what is some of your hope that you'll be able to continue to do with this conference?
Melissa, I feel like I've been talking a lot, so if you want to jump in here, feel
I
free.
love not talking, but I will, I'll talk about a couple of things. So we're definitely tapping into local resources and who's in the area that needs the help. Of course, we expect people to fly in and come and travel and do that type of thing, but we're really trying to create a movement within that area. And that's why every year it will be at a different location. So that way it'll be different speakers and kind of different issues that we're having to deal with based on the location. So for Indianapolis, we have the Metropolitan Police Department coming, prosecuting office coming, all of those, and then different nonprofits from that local area. Now I forgot the question, but I hope I was somewhere
No,
in the realm
you're
of
on it.
it.
Yeah, I was just
But
talking
it's
about the
no,
resources that you like, what you hope to do with money that you raise and what you help to bring to the local people. So, I mean, that's exciting. Just even having the prosecutor's office, there is, pretty exciting too, because talk about wanting to put some pressure on cold case departments. The prosecutor's a great person to add that added pressure to the police department as well.
Yeah, I think that that is a huge part of it. It also, I think, speaks to the willingness of the Indianapolis Metro Police Department to show up to an event like this where there are going to be victims' families. That says a lot to their willingness to partner with the community. So we're super, super excited to have them there. I feel like it gives a little bit more of an opportunity for these families to connect with law enforcement and with the prosecutor's office and get their questions answered. I think that's great that that's an opportunity. In terms of what we're hoping to raise, so it's always been our goal as an organization to make sure that any family that wants to come can come regardless of their financial situation. We've never wanted money to be a limiting factor in people's ability to attend. Now, having said that, none of us are wealthy by any stretch of the imagination. So it's not something that we can fund on our own. But we are definitely hoping that there are people out there who would be willing to sponsor a family, either to pay for their entrance, which covers their meals while they're there, or to help cover their travel costs. That's really what we're trying to focus on there. And then we are, of course, looking for sponsors to help make that even more of a reality. Then we can definitely open the doors to all the families that want to come. Right now, we're limited by how much we've raised so far.
I mean, those are all really admirable goals to have, and hopefully we can help with that, and the people listening can help spread the word as well. Um, Eric, with you, for years, you have been such a voice for advocacy as far as the New Mexico community. Have you felt like what you've been able to do there is going to translate? Like, have you been able to get the prosecutor's office more paying attention? Have you been able to get law enforcement to like add an extra eye to the missings and murder cases that you are always bringing to the forefront?
Yeah, I do know that the DA's office, there are several people at the DA's office and at the AG's office that listen to the show. I've talked to many of them. I think the families, when they tell them that they're coming on the show, sometimes you'll hear the detective saying, "Okay, well, hold on a second, like let's let's talk about this first." And so there is definitely uh, some momentum behind that. I'm with Advocacy Conference, we're really hoping to take that to a national scale. And my vision, my ambition would be eventually a global scale where we could look at other places where I know most is like, oh my God.
Just kidding.
Long-term vision. But I would love to help as many families as possible that need it, because there are just so many people out there that are doing this that don't have a support system, that don't have access to people who know the things that they need to know. We're going to have Julie Murray there talking about getting the media to pay attention to your family's case. We're going to have so many amazing speakers. We've got the Office of Victims. Oh, I better not say that. Hold on. I better watch
You can
myself.
say it. You
We're
can say it. We
we're in
discussed you
talks
can say
we're in
it.
talks with the Office of Victims Compensation. We're waiting on budget approval, but they're bringing some really phenomenal courses to teach us about compassion fatigue and how to break down barriers on the road to justice. Like, there's so many amazing things. I can't stop talking about it. I'm so sorry, Allie. I'm rambling, but I'm excited.
No, you're definitely not. And people are excited. We've got Serendipity here saying she's wondering if the advocacy team would be able to direct her or people like her to contacts that could help with getting a civilian oversight committee started to provide oversight protecting victims and families. Is that something you guys have had experience doing anything like?
It isn't. It isn't. But we do have people coming that are going to talk about legislative change and how to advocate for that and the things that they've done to change laws. I imagine that that would probably have to be some sort of local legislation for that to happen. I think you'd probably want to work with your local representatives, whether it's at a county, city, state level, to see if there might be some possibility to draft some legislation to create that. I know that they're working on that here in New Mexico. They wanted to create an ombudsman for child abuse. The governor kind of fought against it, but I think it's important to have transparency, especially when it comes to cases of homicide, abuse, anything like that. I think we should have transparency in that form of government.
What has the biggest hurdle been, do you think? And I'll stick with New Mexico just because you're so entrenched there with
Mhm.
the victims and the system and everything that's going on, for victims' families to get their cases back in front of people, or to get some of the resources that you're talking about, that you've seen firsthand in your investigating and reporting.
Yeah, well, as I've walked this journey myself with my mom, it's been, I think people think in their minds that somebody kills somebody, the cops find out, they do an investigation, they arrest the person responsible, that person pays and goes to jail and has a reasonable amount of time in jail for what they've done. But it's not always like that. And when things go cold, when a case goes cold, it's hard for somebody who's grieving the loss of somebody they love so desperately, um, and also having to navigate a system that is not set up to be compassionate to you. It's just how it is. It's not set up for victims' families. There's no thought put towards the victims' families. And even if there is, and they have an advocacy unit, oftentimes those people are underpaid, overworked, and don't really have the time to do what they need to do.
I
Um,
find they're doing a lot of just letting people know when court dates are.
right.
And, you should come to court today, and here's a place to sit while you're in court. I've I have had people who've had issues, and I'm like, reach out to the advocate, to the victim advocate at the prosecutor's office, and like push them and tell
Yeah.
them you need this, and you're not getting enough follow-up, you're not getting enough
Mhm.
information. Make sure you fill out your victim's rights form, um, things like that. And Melissa, with you like switching over from, just you and Whitney having fun to, what you've really moved towards as far as advocacy, tell us a little bit about how it's different, about how you even approach telling the story.
Oh, it's much different. Yeah, we take our time. Obviously, ethical, fact based research comes first and foremost. Every single episode that we record and edit, we send to the families prior to it ever being released to make sure they agree with everything that we have stated. It's definitely been a journey of tweaking things here and there. We wouldn't wanna do it any other way. Yes, it's a lot more work, but it's definitely worth it. But like Eric was saying, so many the families that Whitney and I come into contact with, most of their cases are cold. They're not even being investigated any longer. All they want is for someone to listen to them. They're not even at the point of having a court case. They would love it if they had a court case, but nobody knows at that point of who did it. And so they're just looking for someone to listen to them and how to get their family's story, their loved one's story out there. And it's heartbreaking because they're constantly like, they don't know what to do. There's no manual or guidebook. And they're just like, we'll find families on Reddit that's saying, "Hey, has anybody heard about this case? It's my family member." And we reach out and there's no news articles about it, no information whatsoever. And so it's really starting at the beginning with these families. Some are like 30 years old and they barely have an incident report. And so it takes a lot of work right at the beginning, getting even the basic facts of the case down. So these families, they just want to be heard, I feel like, and they want someone to care enough to remember their loved one's name.
And I'm going to take a second to say, of you people that are here, if you have not already, please like, and maybe share so we can get the algorithm on this very important live going. You know how that can work sometimes. But what would you guys tell families who, because like I've had a friend of a friend call and be like, my dad was murdered and no one's looking into it. And and I'm like, you need to just call the cold case division of your police department and like apply pressure and maybe call the prosecutor's office. I mean, is that the only kind of thing people can do? And what do they do when they don't get a call back?
Oh my God, there's so much you can do, and there's so much that I think people might be afraid to do because it is putting yourself out there, right? So, um, one of the things that has really helped Jacob's case has been going on true crime shows and talking about it and getting more people to be aware. Because the more people that are aware, the more that you can leverage those people that care about the case to call the prosecutor's office on your behalf, to call the cold case unit on your behalf, for the public to demand that our elected officials and our city public servants are doing their job. And it is super, super important. It's super important to be able to do that. I think that petitions on change.org can be a really useful tool. It can also help you get some media attention. That happened with Jacob's case. I put a petition. Good Lord, my brain just stopped. I put a petition online, and within, I think, a week, I had calls from all three major networks in Albuquerque asking to cover Jacob's story. So, there's so much that you can do to just build momentum behind you. And unfortunately, when you're in a place where you don't have a lot of leads or you don't really have a way forward, that can be it's a challenging, it's not easy road, but it can be a very effective road at getting people to pay attention.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Getting, like you're saying, by sort of getting yourself out there and getting public interest, like you said, leveraging that public locally to even send an email, to do something is going to add that added pressure of I keep calling and I never get a call back, or I get a call back and they say something, but I honestly don't think they're actually doing anything. Um, to unfortunately, sometimes it takes that a bunch of people pushing for the same thing before they say, all right, I guess we got to listen because these guys keep screaming really loud.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was going to answer Lisa's question, but Jordan is actually on the chat here, and he is going to be giving a seminar on how to file a FOIA. FOIA, really, it depends on your jurisdiction that you're requesting from. Some are more organized than others. Some are more friendly to people requesting records than others. It really, really just depends. It can be super easy. So, like, for example, in New Mexico, the state police, super easy. 24 to 48 hours, you have everything you need. It's all redacted. Other metropolitan areas, I'm not going to name them out loud, can be very slow and overcharge, in my opinion. So it really just depends. I had a bill for one FOIA request that was over $6,000.
Wow.
So those are the kinds of things that you face in terms of barriers. But Jordan is the expert, and he definitely can help talk us through how to do that.
And is that one of the things that your fundraising hopes to help families have funds for?
So typically, like, those costs, if it's a family request, I haven't seen people charged. And New Mexico has very specific rules about what you can charge for and what you can't. Every state, every jurisdiction has its own rules with FOIA. So it just really depends on who you're interfacing with.
And I find, like, at least for smaller communities, a lot of them have even apps and websites. They
Mhm.
track the request, it sends an email, and it can be very simple. But then you
Yeah.
run up against those situations where they're like, nope, this is an open case. I'm not giving this and that. And then you've got to give pushback, study the statute, and say, no, this falls outside of that. No, cite this specific reason. They cite the reason. You pull up the same statute that they cite and argue back about whether or not it fits in in that exception where they're trying to say they don't have to give the paperwork.
Yeah, it can go back and forth for a while.
Yeah.
It's it's crazy how different each jurisdiction is. We've had some literally give us everything, every gruesome detail, every photo, everything. And then some are like, no, we're not even giving you the incident report that literally has nothing on it. So it kind of, I call it lottery because you never know what you're going to get. But hopefully I will be learning some more from Jordan at AC.
Are there any of the a couple of the victims' cases who are going to be highlighted at this conference that you can tell us a little bit about?
Yeah, there's a lot of families that are going to be there. We've got Leon Laurellis's family. We've got Julie
And what?
Murray.
So
Yep.
tell us about that first one.
About Leon. So Leon Laurellis was in what's the town, Melissa? Brownwood, Texas,
Brownwood.
in
Yeah,
West
or
Texas.
Ville. Yeah.
Brownwood, I think,
Okay.
West Texas, and he was found murdered on the side of a highway. The circumstances are very suspicious. There's a lot of rumors in the community about who did it. Leon's niece Arlene is fighting for answers for him. She's working really hard. She's going to be there. I'm so happy to welcome her. We've got, who else do we have, Melissa?
Julie
We
Murray,
have
you
Julie Murray.
mentioned,
Julie
who's
Murray
been
with
fighting for years. Tell people who don't know a little bit about Julie's case.
Yeah, so Maura Murray went missing, I think 20 years ago, a little over 20 years
yeah.
ago. There's a lot of that case kind of got taken over by the public and grew a life of its own. And really, Maura got lost in a lot of what was going on. And so Julie actually took the story back and released a season of Media Pressure, which is on the Voices for Justice Network, I believe, and really shot up to number one. I think the number one podcast in the world for a good amount of time. And she's going to talk through what it's been like to advocate for that case and offer some of the tips and things that she's learned.
Right,
Brian,
because that's, I mean, what happened with her is what you see a lot in true crime, where people are just coming at it from all different angles. Some make no sense. And like you said, that takes on a life of its own that's not founded in fact and reality. And then the victim gets lost in it. And she really, like you said, had to fight hard to retake back the story, get the facts out there, and sort of get the public and the police back on the right track as far as a factual basis for the investigation and the story around the investigation. So
yeah.
she'll be very helpful to people as far as talking them through what they went through. So you were going to mention someone else?
Well, I saw that, Melissa, you might want to take this one. I saw that somebody mentioned
Yeah.
Brian. Yeah.
Yes. So Brian Vladeck Castle, he went missing in Orlando area. His family had went on a trip. He didn't want to go. He was, I think, 21, 22, somewhere around that age. His family comes home and he is nowhere to be seen. The last recorded footage was of him at a coffee shop. And it's been about 3 years and no sightings of him since then. His sisters have worked tirelessly trying to bring his case into the public eye, because for so long, I mean, it was just, he's an adult, he can go away if he wants. But it was very unusual and kind of leading up to it, very unusual circumstances.
And Eric,
Oh,
are you going to be speaking? I mean, your personal story?
I won't be telling my story at the conference. I'm going to be probably running around, pulling out what little hair I have. But I am going to be there. My mom is actually planning on being there as well, representing Justice for Jacob. And so we'll be there to honor my brother and hopefully be able to participate. At least my mom will, while I'm running around taking care of things.
Yeah, it's not going to be easy, I'm sure. I can't imagine everything it goes through to put something like that together. And how is there something behind picking Indianapolis? Because I know you said you want things to be state specific, and was there a reason for Indianapolis?
Honestly, it was the best price. We were targeting the center of the country, and just because we wanted it to be like the first one to be kind of centrally located for people, and
Right.
we thought Indy, first of all, the price was perfect, and then the other part of it is that like people could come from Chicago, people could come from, Tennessee, Kentucky, from Ohio, from different parts of the Midwest, and get there pretty easily if they wanted to drive. So that was kind of the thought process behind that for the first year.
Well, that makes sense. It does help to be centrally located, and like you said, get bigger areas close enough. And gotta be it's important to keep costs down for all the things you're saying. You want families to be able to afford to come, and you're trying to, raise funds to help the families. Um, have you had trouble, are you cold calling families and, like, doing all of that?
We're not cold calling people, but we are, trying to post on justice pages, on missing and murdered Facebook pages and Facebook groups. We're buying some, I think, podcast ads, and we've done some social media ads. We're also asking our local partners to inform the clients that they work with, whether it's, the Metro Police Department or whomever is coming, just to let them know that this exists and that is an opportunity for them. But we would welcome any help spreading the word. If you could just share the links, or just share about the conference, it would really make a huge impact. We want to get as many people here as possible so that we can have the biggest impact as possible.
Of
If you
course.
are a family member, you can go onto the website and there's a
Mhm.
special tab there for families. You kind of fill out a form and we figure things out and let you know in due time. So, yes, we're still admitting families. We are all full on speakers already
Wow,
For this
that's
year.
impressive.
for this year. We are signing up for 2026, though.
Yeah.
Do you have, private investigators that you work with in different states, and someone in Indianapolis?
We don't have investigators that we work with in multiple states. Uh, we really have been trying hard to find reputable PIs, because I know that there are some bad actors out there, and we don't want to bring people that are going to grift the families to this
Mhm.
conference.
Yeah.
So we've been very selective about who we've talked to. I think we almost have a definite from somebody who is
No,
reputable. We have a definite from somebody who's
we have a
reputable.
definite. Yeah, he's coming.
So we do have a strong person there, and we welcome other ethical, reputable, individuals that want to participate and be there for the families of the missing and murdered, and not try to take their life savings from them.
Is that something that you've seen be a widespread problem with victims' families that you guys have spoken with or dealt with?
There are people out there that, you know may have their heart in the right place, but may be doing things that are not above board, right? So like claiming that their dog is trained in a certain way that they may not be, and charging the family $3,000 for it. There's stuff that happens. It's not, and I don't want to give people ideas either, right?
Right,
But it's
you don't have to, yeah, I hear you.
but it's not like, it's just something that we, as a family member, myself, has had to be careful with, because I've trusted people in the past that maybe their heart was in the right place, but they didn't really end up helping, or they ended up making things worse. And so I think families just have to be very careful and discerning when trying to decide who they're going to bring in their circle to help them.
Right. Well, what about the conference is different as far as, um, like, from a law enforcement side of it? I know you said prosecutors. Do you anticipate any law enforcement, coming or speaking or
Coming for sure. Coming for sure. Like I said, we are kind of full on our speakers right now, but they will. I think Indianapolis Metro PD will be there. They are trying to get some of the top brass people to show up, and if they do, they'll, probably just walk in and do whatever they do. I don't know, but we do anticipate that they will be there. And in every event that we go to, every city, we're going to extend that invitation to the authorities.
did you find a lot of, Indiana specific or Indianapolis, Indiana specific, uh, cases that you thought were a good fit and would be beneficial to them that are gonna be there?
Honestly, I think that's going to be beneficial to every family. We would welcome all of them. We haven't targeted specific cases out of Indiana, but we definitely think that any family that is going through this would be able to get something out of it, even if it's just camaraderie, knowing that you're not alone, knowing that there are so many other people out there doing the same thing that you're doing.
And like
But
you said, giving them a roadmap for what to do in their towns and in their cases, I mean, that's invaluable.
yeah,
And I think it's invaluable to know you're not alone and to build a support base,
it
especially like you're
is.
saying for people out there saying, what can I do as just a consumer and a consumer of true crime and someone who wants to help victims and advocacy. It's finding the families near you and then writing to your representatives and to the police
Mhm.
department and to the prosecutor's office. I mean, that right there is something that people can do who want to help.
Yeah. And I will say we did look at the number of unsolved cases that are there. We did look at the number of missing people in the area. That was something that we considered when we were looking at locations, because we don't want to just show up. Not to say that any place doesn't have that, but we didn't want to just show up without knowing that there's a need for what we're providing. And so there was definitely a need in Indianapolis. There's definitely a need in the next place that we're going to next year. If you want to know about, you have to be at the conference
Yeah,
to
I have to
find
be at
out.
the conference. And it's a 2-day conference?
Yeah. So Friday night there will be like a mixer for the families and the resources so that they can all kind of get to know each other before the conference actually starts. That way it's a little bit warmer when they're walking through the exhibit hall. But then Saturday, the full day of programming. Sunday is a half day of programming, and then we're doing a big fundraiser Saturday afternoon. It's going to be a game night, and it's going to be a fundraiser for Season of Justice and our foundation, Impact Advocacy Foundation. So it's going to be a fun time. We're going to play bingo. We're going to play, I don't know, probably Monopoly and stuff like that. So,
Well, that's good. Bring some levity to it and some
mhm.
bonding time and all of that. Now, was Give Butter the foundation? Did that already exist before, or that was something specifically that new that you created?
It's a free, actually, we didn't create that. It's a free tool that is available to nonprofits, where you can sell tickets, you can raise money, people can donate with their credit card, debit card, checking account, whatever they want to do. But it's like a third party that just handles that and facilitates it for us and makes it a little bit easier on us.
Oh, well, that's good.
But we did start the nonprofit after discovering that, hey, we're gonna do Advocacy Con, and we kinda needed a way that we could help pay for the family's expenses on the way there and their education, and I mean, we've given away grants for even flights at this point. So the nonprofit really came afterwards, just thinking about legality of it all, so
Yeah.
we have both.
Well, that's good. I know it's hard. It's not an easy thing to do, even to get recognized and to set it all up. And the fact that you guys are doing all of this to help others. I mean, it really speaks to you guys as human beings, which I already knew you guys were amazing human beings, but this this really highlights that. Um, so what um what else can you tell us about the um the journey for family members, as far as like you were talking about that camaraderie, like how other victims families that you guys know have felt that was like something they didn't even might not have known they needed in their life, kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know I needed it in my life. I always felt like, man, this is going to be a long, dark, lonely road that I'm just going to have to trudge with my mom and hope that eventually something happens. And so I learned that this community existed through events like the True Crime Podcast Festival, where I was able to connect with other people like me, where I was able to meet Sarah Turney and Julie Murray and, um, so many other families that are out there. And to be able to just sit there and talk about this stuff, the stuff that we're dealing with, and somebody actually understands what you're going through, like the value of that is immeasurable. uh, what that does for your mental health, for your hope, for your fight, your energy to fight. Like, this is the longest marathon I've ever done. Almost 40 years. It is exhausting. I'm constantly feeling like, man, I should just throw in the towel because I'm so tired, but I don't. And a lot of the reason why I don't is because I have friends like Julie, friends like Sarah, so many other family members out there that friends like Arlene, where we can all just relate to each other. And I think that's going to be the power and the magic of AdvocacyCon, is going to be those moments where it says, hey, I'm not so alone anymore. And now I have somebody that I can talk to. Sometimes I'll just send a broken heart emoji to one of my friends, and they'll send like the healing heart emoji, and we don't even say anything, but we both know, you know, what the other person's going through, and that's powerful.
Yeah. And the Broken System podcast asked a good question. What is the average cost per family, and how can we donate? Now, as far as how can we donate, we've got that listed on the tickler down there at the givebutter.com advocacy foundation. But how much do you need to raise for everything you said? Because it's not just their admission, some of it's travel, like an average cost per family, do you think?
We do have that worked out, Melissa. I think you're the numbers
We
person, so
do.
I'm going to defer to you.
So, yes, uh, families can request different things. They can request just admission to the conference, which that would pay for their tickets, which is anywhere from $185 to $250. Then they can also ask for a hotel stay, which we have an amazing rate of, I believe it's $134 a night, which if you tried to get that without our rate right now, I think it's like triple that. I think the NBA conference, Whitney said, something's happening in Indianapolis that same weekend. Um, so we added that on there. So 2 days of the whole conference for two people with the hotel, we're running $650. If they needed travel, depends on if they can fly or if they are able to drive. We have families that we've paid for, just given them a Visa gift card so that they're able to get gas along the way because they're close enough to drive. So I mean, we figured $300 in expenses for that versus flying, which we have a family coming from Virginia. Obviously, they need to fly. So we allocated $1,000 for that family for their travel expenses. So it kind of just depends. We take it case by case. The family lets us know, what do you need? And then we go back and try to figure out how much money we're able to give that family. Another thing to know, our conference is providing breakfast on both Saturday and Sunday, as well as lunch on Saturday, and that's included with your ticket price.
Wow.
Yes, we also will have a meditation on one of the days, either Saturday or Sunday, a guided meditation with someone that actually knows how to do that, not just like us.
Right.
And then we'll also have a yoga session. We want this to be like an all-encompassing, try to be relaxed, even though we know it's going to be a traumatic weekend for a lot of these families. So we're trying to throw everything we can possibly think of that these families might need into the mix for this weekend.
And we're going to have, hopefully, we're going to have therapy dogs available.
Yes.
So, if it does get a little bit heavy and a little bit difficult, you can go hug a dog and let them lick your face and make that feel a little bit better for a minute. We're also looking for a clinician that might be able to be available for triage in case somebody needs to talk to somebody professional. So if you are a licensed clinician in mental health and you want to maybe donate some of your time, that is also appreciated. Any kind of expert that wants to donate their services or time to the families of the missing and murdered at AdvocacyCon, we would welcome them.
Wow, that's see, now that's the benefit of having someone like you, Eric, and not to take away from you and Whitney, Melissa, but knowing like what it feels like and thinking of things like therapy dogs and you know and having counselors on staff and things like that. It's really amazing what you guys are building and doing, and the amount of your time that you're all willing to invest in seeing this through. It's very admirable.
Thank you. That's
Thank
really nice
you.
of you.
So how do you guys speaking of all this, with your podcasts, doing this and life, like how do you unwind and kind of reset yourselves with all the heavy stuff that you're dealing with all the time? Why don't you start, Melissa?
Okay. So, I'm not quite sure yet. I went back to
She
work full
hasn't been
time a few
unwinding.
I haven't, no. Um, yeah, it's just talking with friends, talking it out. We all have our bad days, believe we have a group chat that's constantly going with, like, stressed out emojis and all of that. But then we meet every single week, and I think we vent out our frustrations, what's going on. If someone needs to take a mental health break for a couple of days, weeks, go right ahead, and then the other ones just pick up the slack for that couple of weeks. We all have such different skill sets that we play off of each other amazing. It's been a heck of a year and a half
Mm.
planning this, I have to say. Some days it's like, "What is happening?" But most days we're perfectly fine. I TikTok a lot. We doom scroll, just get your mind completely off of all of your responsibilities. I think that's how I have to handle it. Other than that, so far I've been handling it quite well, I think.
Sounds like you're at least finding ways. What about you,
Yeah.
Eric?
Yeah, so mental health break, that was me. Uh, I've actually been working a lot on taking care of myself because that's something that I haven't been very good at, and I think that that probably comes with the territory of my history. And so I kind of got into a really dark place and a place of hopelessness, which is I need Advocacy Con just as much as every other family member, right? Like I need that hope, and so I kind of feel like for me, it's about taking the time to sit and be quiet, listen to some soft music, take a bath, go camping, go out in nature, do a hike, something that just connects me to a more simpler mindset, a more calm place. And I do that pretty much. I find that calm place one way or another, at least once a day.
And do you guys both, how much time, like even outside or inside of Advocacy Con, but in both of your podcasts as well, how much time do you spend with the family for, let's just say, start with the podcast for any given episode? How much time does that take with the families?
Uh, Go ahead, Whit. Melissa. Sorry, I called you Whit.
Okay. So, I went back to work full time a few months ago, so we kinda had to Whitney and I had to shake things up and figure out how this was going to work. Luckily, there is 2 of us. So, for our weekly podcast that comes out, I do all the background research because I can hopefully my boss isn't watching, I could do that during work sometimes. Uh, I do all the background research and everything while Whitney meets with the family and gets their perspective of it. She'll ask the questions, she gets the audio of that. And then each week we come together. And while I'm just telling her the facts that I found, she's going more into who they were, humanizing them, telling the cute stories and how the family felt or in the family's journey throughout the time. So that is it's so helpful because I can't go to meetings all of the time and she has a little bit more flexible schedule so it works great for us. But I want to say with us sending we record all of do the research, record, send it to the families, make the final edits that the families I mean, usually about 2 to 3 weeks it takes for that whole process. Probably anywhere 20 to 40 hours per episode.
Wow.
So yeah, yeah.
A lot of
But
time with the families
yeah,
for each
it's
story.
it's working out. And I mean, they take time and then they don't like how they said something, which is completely understandable. Some of them will get off on some tangents and name people that they really didn't want named. So it kind of depends. But it's definitely amazing always working with the families. And I don't feel so crazy when it goes out into the world. And I'm scared to death if the family hears it for the very first time without their permission. So it's definitely relieved a lot of anxiety, them hearing it before it's put out there.
Yeah, that's
And
an
that's a
awesome.
change, like you said, from when you
Hmm.
were at, uh, what Crimes Cabernet
Colts, crimes,
Colt
and
Crimes and
Cabernet.
Cabernet.
Yeah.
Um, and go ahead, Eric.
Well, I was going to say well, I forgot what I was going to say on that, but I haven't produced an episode in a while, mostly because I've just been dealing with the fallout of Jacob's case kind of falling apart last year. And so I am working on a project. I can't talk about it right now, but I'm working on a project. So I will have some podcasting coming back soon. But it was about the same as Melissa said, between 20 and 40 hours. Because you do have to also consider the kind of back and forth on email that happens first before you even get on the phone with somebody. And it takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of compassion and a lot of empathy. And it takes somebody who can just leave space in the conversation for this person to pour their heart out. And so it's not something that everybody can do. I know that Whitney and Melissa are phenomenal at it. It's an important thing though.
And are you finding the same kind of families sort of need the same kind of support, and you guys being there as far as getting them to the Advocacy Con and helping them through what that's going to look like, that type of thing?
Yeah, for all of our families, we've invited them, told them about it. They're more than welcome to come. But yeah, they really want those people to listen. I think quite a few of our episodes, at least in season 6, have never been on a podcast before. So it was completely new territory for them. They were very nervous, wasn't sure what to expect, and now they're starting to try to figure out how to advocate for their loved one, because for one reason or another, they weren't able to at that point. And so Advocacy Con is the perfect place for them to go, because there's only so much we can tell them in a quick couple-hour meeting while we're basically getting their story from them. So Advocacy Con is going to have so many more resources and nonprofits for them just to talk to and pick their brains about what to do and what to do next. So I think they'll get so much out of it.
Before you answer that question for navigating advocacy, Melissa, the other thing that I think is, never mind, it's gone, forget it. That's what I get.
Because I think we were talking about letting how it is to communicate with the families who are going to be there, and how much support those people need, even just talking about moving forward. I don't know if that was where you were headed, or it was something that Melissa said that.
Oh yeah, no, now I remember. Okay, so that's another thing that I'm really hoping happens, and I think is going to happen naturally, is whenever a family member standing in front of a nonprofit talking about whatever they're dealing with, and then the person from the nonprofit who has all of this knowledge of resources in their community can say, "Oh my God, you need to talk to so and so, or you need to talk to this person. You need to go to this organization." Like, I think we're going to see a lot of those little moments that we didn't even expect were going to happen, that will just happen organically. I'm super excited for that.
Yeah, that is definitely something worthy of excitement. I mean, you don't even know all of the good that'll come out of this. Is going to be a learning experience for you guys. You've already got your second one set up, and I guess that'll be this will give you a roadmap for that. I'm sure you'll learn things you didn't even think you were going to do or need, as it all kind of comes together. But now I just had a question that email. How do people, like we're saying, okay, are you a therapist out there? Are you a licensed clinician? Is there an email? What's the best way for people to reach out to you guys and say, I'm willing to donate my time, I'm willing to do this, whatever the case may be?
Yeah, email is info@advocacycon.com, or you can just go to advocacycon.com on the website and do a contact form. That's also an easy way to get a hold of us. Or you can DM us on social media at advocacy_con on all platforms.
Okay. And I'm going to put this in social media at advocacy_con. If that was an underscore, I think so. So so what will you do with people who, if somebody says, yeah, I'll do the clinicians, do you just think you'll have like a little area where people can go, or
Yeah, we're gonna
how do you
have
envision it?
we're calling it. This name is probably going to change eventually, but we're calling it the therapy room right now. So that's where the therapy dogs will be, and then we may have, depending on how many licensed clinicians we could get, like a little area that's kind of private with some kind of, this is just in my head.
Right.
We haven't even talked about this yet, but just like a calm environment where it's just less stimulation and more peace.
Yeah, at the hotel that will be staying at and the conference will be held at, we have plenty of spaces and breakout rooms that one we can make as the therapy room if we're able to get a clinician involved.
And Eric, and both of you, really, you've been to a lot of true crime conventions where victims' families do speak and they do present or have some sort of exhibition or exhibit of some sort. Have you found that they can sometimes, to their surprise, become more emotional than they anticipated? Is that something you've seen firsthand that prompted this? You know what? Therapy dogs would be a really helpful tool.
It's something I've experienced firsthand where, I can't even finish a sentence because I'm choked up. Or, I think one that got me really hard was when somebody asked me, if Jacob was here, what would you say to him? It was over for me after that, right? Because then all of everything that I want to say just came rushing at the same time. So knowing how I react and how I feel is kind of what drove those conversations. And also just like Whitney and Melissa being super empathetic people, understanding that this is the kind of environment that we need to create. They knew that right off the bat. That was on the top of their minds too. So it wasn't just me coming with my experience. We also kind of all thought of that collectively.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've seen at different conferences, like what is done well, what we would like to be different and that kind of thing. And so we've taken ideas from different conferences and we're like,
Mhm.
hey, let's implement this. Let's not do this type of thing. Because yes, we have been to a bunch of them. So definitely learning by experience. And I'm sure after this first year, we'll know more of what to do and what not to do.
So is there anyone else of the people that you're um uh the presenters that you haven't talked about yet that you'd like to talk a little bit about?
Yeah, I can take some of these, Melissa, unless you want to jump in.
I mean,
Uh,
I'll do a couple of them that
okay.
are highlighted. So we will be having Haley Gray from Haley Gray's Research. She will be talking about how families can research their own case. Because I know for a fact, a lot of the families that come to us and that we work with don't even have the newspaper articles that I have found. And so just showing them how to use this or how to use different court websites to find information will be so needed for a lot of these families because they don't always know where to start. We all could take that for granted, especially if you're, technologically advanced, even somewhat, about how to just Google or make a Facebook page, that kind of thing. A lot of these families, if these are cold cases, they don't even know where to begin. We also have John Lorden coming in, and he will be speaking about a missing persons checklist. What to do first, what to do second, everything that you need to have handy for when you are reporting. Whitney and I had learned, I can't even remember where we learned it, that for dental records, you need to know where your loved one went to the dentist in order to get those records. Otherwise, you're kind of out of luck and you might miss your window of opportunity to even get them. And then what if you eventually find them and you have no dental records? So it's like little things like that that I would never think of. But John Lorden will be there talking about that. Whitney said in the chat, we learned that from Laura Norton. That's right. She did talk about that. So just little things that I feel will be a great asset.
Yeah, we've got Madison McGee, the podcaster from Ice Cold Case, coming to talk about how self-advocacy is going to solve her dad's murder. If you haven't listened to her podcast, it's really well done. She investigates her father's murder on her own, and she's going to be talking about that process and how she's been able to get people to pay attention. doing this podcast. We've got Nicole Schmidt and Joseph Petito, along with Tara Petito and James Schmidt, coming on behalf of the Gabby Petito Foundation. And they're going to be talking about their emotional journey, what it took to turn that tragedy into a movement for hope and education about domestic violence. It's going to be a very powerful session. We've got Laura Norton from the Fall Line podcast, also a published author, along with Dr. Amy, and they're going to be talking about missing Jane Does and how to identify unidentified people. We've got Julie Murray, like I said. She's going to be on with Shayna from Light the Way. They're going to be talking about their advocacy journey. And one of the sessions that I'm super excited about is John Palmer, who is Katie Palmer's husband. He's going to be talking about how he turned his advocacy efforts into getting a new DA elected and changing laws in Texas. So there's going to be some powerful, powerful conversations happening.
That's really exciting. I have to say, like, I feel like you guys are starting like a whole new thing. I don't think this is going to stop with advocacy conference, and I'm sure that excites you just to think about it. That other organizations or people, you've got how many crime cons are going to start these advocacy conferences, and that is it. It really is. It's just a better way to do it. It just is. Why do we need to, promote all the creators when we can get the story out there, put people in touch with the actual victims' families, and, have the creators come to them, hear their stories and be like, "Okay, I'd like to share your story." I think it's very exciting, and I honestly think you're gonna start like a whole new offshoot. And if it doesn't, it sure as shit should.
Thank
Oh,
you,
well,
Allie.
thank
That's
you.
really sweet. Yeah, I
God,
appreciate it.
I really do. I honestly do believe that because, I mean, there's all these people who consume true crime. I think a lot of it, yeah, it's interesting and they're drawn to it, but I think it comes deep down from a place of like Melissa and Whitney, of empathy for the story, for the victim, and especially with it, just knowing that the base is so overwhelmingly female, it's about more than wine and chatting, even if that's how it starts, like
Mhm.
you and Whitney. I mean, it's just sort of the easy way to approach it, but
Mhm.
there's so much more behind it. And Melissa and Whitney, you guys are just such a good example of that and how it can evolve from just this is fun and interesting into this is I can help with this. I can do something. I can make change because there's nothing more powerful than the masses. And there are so many masses. And what you guys are doing, especially, trying to focus on a state by state type of thing, is bringing that advocacy that the masses and connecting them all and creating that leverage from a population that already exists. They're just not connected in the way that you guys are now connecting them. And I think you're right. It's gonna be very, very, very powerful. And I mean, it's not an easy thing to do, and you've got to get selfless people wanting to do it. But I really
Mhm.
do hope that others will follow suit. And I really think they will.
Thank you, Allie. I think that the true crime community can be a force for powerful good. There are so many people that are listening and consuming this content. And with just a couple of small things like a share or commenting to get engagement on a missing persons post can make a huge impact in these cases and getting that awareness. And so every little thing like that that seems insignificant to somebody who's not dealing with this, it's important for you to know that it is probably the most significant thing that you can do. Engage with that content, share the content, talk about these cases. You guys have the power in the numbers of your existence, right? There's so many people. And so we could turn the tide around from exploitation to helping.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you've got for the people who once they put their stories out there, it goes sideways. You've got the Julie Murray story and, to tell you how to take control of it again and keep it on track, which I know is not easy and it's stressful, but it's important.
Mhm.
It's important. And it's like just like as like a microcosm of it, like, Bob and I, as most of our listeners and viewers know, we're big live music people, and we are part of a group of people like at My Morning Jacket. There's a lot of people. We all would come together and like go to the same bar and kind of hang out. And a friend of mine and I, we were like, why don't we at least start monopolizing on the fact that we are a large group. We are going to go to the same place anyway. And we started going to the bars ahead of time and saying, "Hey, we're going to bring our pre-party to your bar. Are you willing to donate back 10% to," and it, like most bands will have things that they donate to,
Mm.
and we just go right to I don't touch it. You send it right to their 50, their nonprofit organization, and let them, do with it. But it was the same concept. It's like, "Hey, we have power here. We're already a group. Like, take us all and use us, to accomplish good." And that's what you guys are doing. And I think you're going to fill a void in the true crime community that most people know they need it, and they're going to be like, "Wait a minute. This is what I can do." And even just knowing, like you said earlier, and we said earlier, that they can call their cold case department. They can email the prosecutor's office. They can write to their legislators. I mean, that right there, it's like something good has come from this thing that I like to learn about.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, I think it's really compelling what you guys are doing, and not everybody is willing to or able to find a way, even if they want to. I know it hasn't been easy for you guys, but to find a way to be able to do it and make it happen and not just talk about it. So hats off to you guys for that, for
I
sure.
I do that to my own detriment. I think Melissa and Whitney too. Actually, like we keep adding more stuff to our plates, and we're like, one more thing will be fine. It'll be fine. We'll figure it out.
Well, it's because
If you
you have this experience and knowledge, and like I said, expect even Melissa and Whitney kind of knowing how you went from, you know, one stage of true crime to another, like, it's out there and you can do it. So I guess that's what drives you to keep adding things to your plate.
Yeah, it does. It does. And I it's always been my goal to leave the world a little bit better for families like my family. And so this is one step in that direction. And I'm sure there's going to be many more steps in the future towards that direction.
Well, I'm so glad we were able to do this. I'm so glad you guys were able to come. Is there anything else that each of you might want to say that you haven't already?
no, no, please go to advocacycon.com for more information. You're able to book hotel there, buy tickets there, just donate if you can't make it to Indianapolis in March. We know there's always a million things going on in everyone's life. So please donate for possibly a family to go. The nonprofit is Impact Advocacy Foundation, and it's a .org. So if you want to go there, you can make a donation there, and that is tax deductible.
Oh, is that different than the butter one we've been
No,
doing?
no, the butter one is fine.
It's
Yes.
the same one. It's just
Yeah,
you can get to it from our website too. I
yeah,
think that every little bit counts, right? Like if you can only donate $1, $5,
Right.
all of that adds up. All that money goes into the pool, into the fund that we are giving these funds out to the families for. So any donation helps. And if you can't donate financially, I understand times can be tough. A share goes a long way too. So that makes a huge impact. But thank you for the time, Allie and Bob. Sorry you're not here, but we love you guys, and we're so honored to be here. And we look forward to seeing everybody at AdvocacyCon.
We will be there. We hope to see you
yeah.
guys too. And again, before we leave, just if you guys can click that little thumbs up, like it, share it, and, try to drive people to the replay crew. I think this is really, really important. And I honestly think that all the true crime consumers are going to feel like this is just what they needed, and they've got some extra direction with something that they're already interested and motivated to do, and it gives you a way to do something and to learn how each one of us can make a difference in our own communities and in the life of a victim's family. So thanks again, all. Thank you, guys. It was great doing this, and I'll see you in March.
Yes, thank you. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
I've